One of the issues that has emerged lately is that there's currently a global shortage of personal protective safety equipment, including masks and gowns, because of the COVID-19 outbreak. I was wondering if your organization is looking into how these could be procured in the event of a widespread outbreak in Africa, and if that's a specific concern for the continent.
So Medicare has not at the moment started procuring specifically for COVID-19. However, we are still procuring for the Ebola outbreak, and the PPE items such as the N95 tuberculosis type mask and just regular surgical masks or gowns are the same. So the type of PPE we're using for Ebola is the same type of PPE that is also needed for certain aspects of the work around COVID-19. And I think that is creating a challenge. And we have had some delays in some of our supply shipments because of the global shortage. I think that one of the things that is concerning that we've seen in a lot of the African context is the baseline supply of things such as gloves and masks and gowns is generally poor, or there is no supply. And that basic IPC infrastructure and parameters are not in place at a baseline. And so that is one of the big challenges, is that a lot of organizations may need to procure now or procure once there is transmission. And that would probably be too late, as it will take at least several weeks to months to be able to get a large enough quantity of supplies in to be able to respond. And so I think that is one of the fears of a large-scale outbreak in Africa, is that it would be quite delayed to be able to have the supplies that we need, unless there would be a possibility of a major UN partner like UNICEF, WFP, WHO bringing in a bulk of supplies. But from what I understand, that would also be a challenge for them with the current shortages that we're seeing globally.
Right. So that's one of the things that the countries need to be prepared for.
Yes, there should be, in countries where there are outbreaks that are spread through respiratory or contact, there should be a baseline buffer stock available in those countries to be able to respond. So a place like DRC, where we have ongoing Ebola, there should be PPE available for that. However, that would be quickly utilized in an outbreak of COVID-19 simply because of the number of cases that you would see versus the number of cases that we see, such as in the Ebola outbreak, which is significantly fewer.
That's really interesting. And speaking about the Ebola outbreak, my next question, that leads me to the next question, which was, what lessons would you say that NGOs have learned from the Ebola outbreak that could be applied to a widespread COVID-19 outbreak?
I believe one of the main lessons learned, which has been learned many times, but we still tend to forget it, is the criticality of community engagement. And that is not just spreading of health information, but listening as well, and really listening to try to understand how communities see the outbreak, what rumors are being spread about the outbreak, and being able to directly answer questions and try to dispel myths and rumors to enable people to have accurate information, and also to ensure that that information is shared prior to major interventions. I think some of the violence that we saw at the earlier stages of the Ebola outbreak were possibly due to us jumping in with major medical interventions like isolation and doing triage and PPE that just made people nervous. And it was scary to see people suddenly in this when you didn't understand why people were setting up these isolation booths and wearing PPE. And I think any of us would have the same concerns if that showed up in our neighborhood and we didn't understand why or what was going on. So the criticalness of having good community engagement, starting with community engagement, and not just speaking, but also listening and trying to use that information to adapt your messages and to adapt your interventions is really one of the most important things that I think we can do in any outbreak to really affect change. Because outbreaks are stopped not always necessarily because of our medical interventions, but because of communities feeling empowered to do the right things to stop the spread.